Welcome to Conquering Your Clownfish, a podcast dedicated to transforming disabilities into special abilities. I'm your host, Brady Murray. Welcome to Conquering Your Clownfish. I am honored to introduce our guest today, Robin Knight. Robin is the president of Just Breathe Adaptive Scuba, a nonprofit whose mission is to promote the health and well-being of individuals with disabilities in outdoor recreation through participation and certification in adaptive scuba diving. Robin, is a mother of 8 and grandmother of 4, with 2 more on the way, I might add. And she has devoted her life to working with children and youth in many roles. Robin, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Excited to have you here. This is going to be way fun to be able to visit with you about this. So Robin and I had the chance to be able to meet. Man, it would have been during Christmas time, if I'm not mistaken. Right. And I've been very much looking forward to having you as a guest on the show to learn about this. So start with adaptive scuba diving. Tell us what in the world that is exactly.
So adaptive scuba diving is just a modification, I guess, of scuba diving for people that have disabilities. And we dive with people that have any disability. That I like to use the phrase, if you can breathe, you can dive, because there isn't very much that we can't adapt scuba diving around. If you already know how to scuba dive, you kind of know how it looks to dive independently and maybe with a buddy. But when we dive with people with disabilities, all we do is create a team around them that keeps them safe and mitigates anything that they have trouble doing themselves, or anything with the equipment that they have trouble managing themselves. We just take care of it for them to keep them safe. So we can dive in pools, we can dive in the ocean, we can dive in whatever environment is the right one for that diver. So it's a lot of fun.
This is fascinating, because when the first time I heard this, I thought that my first question actually was, so like somebody with Down syndrome could do this? And how did you respond to that?
I probably told you absolutely. Yeah, I've been diving with a couple of different individuals with Down syndrome, and it's so much fun. So much fun.
So this is a perfect guest for Conquering Your Clownfish, because this is a show that is geared towards caregivers, individuals who have a loved one that has a disability, to inspire caregivers to be able to get way outside their comfort zone and allow their loved one, their child or their loved one, to sing the song they're meant to sing. And so I love getting outside my comfort zone with my boys, but I have to be honest, when I first heard this, the thought of like Nash and Coop going scuba diving, I didn't even think that was possible, right? Until I had met you.
Right. And that's probably, if you had to ask me what our biggest hurdle is, it's getting people to believe that this is actually an option for them and for their families. And that's one of our biggest goals, is to create an environment for families to participate in an activity together. We can train, anybody in that family to scuba dive, and then create a trip or an environment where everyone can dive together.
All right. So how did this come about?
Well, I think it was a little bit of started with kind of a personal growth thing for me. I have 8 kids, and I've almost reached a point in my life where they are all going to be out of the house. I somehow, for some reason, thought it would look like I would go straight from mom to grandma, and I'm realizing that grandma doesn't take quite as much time as mom. And so I realized that I kind of had a hole that I had to fill in my life, and I started trying to figure out what I would fill it with, and what this kind of second half of my life would look like. One of my friends used that phrase, and it kind of resonated with me. But it started as I was traveling with my husband. He does Ironmans, and we were down in Florida, and because there's an ocean, I wondered if I could scuba dive there, and sought out a little local dive store, and went on a dive with really a fascinating dive master that led the dive. So she was planning to do some training with a different adaptive dive curriculum than I ended up with. But she and I spent a lot of time talking about what an amazing experience it is. So I came home from that and just started doing some research. I ended up doing some training with an organization called Dive Heart. It's a certification organization for adaptive divers and adaptive dive buddies. And I already being a scuba instructor, I got the certification to become an adaptive scuba instructor, and started out by just throwing myself into the experience and just fell in love with it. Went on a couple of trips where I learned, improved my own personal skills and my own teaching skills in the adaptive training to kind of set myself up so that I would be have the skills that I needed. And just like I said, absolutely fell in love with the process and with the opportunity to dive with people that taught me more about myself than I already knew. So I came home from that training and from those experiences and just went for it. Started Just Breathe Adaptive Scuba and open the doors and open my heart and have a good group of people I'm working with right now. So it's
How
been
long
really
ago did you
fun.
start?
So it's only been a couple of years. So we're pretty close to 2 years of being in existence as a nonprofit. It's been fun to see how quickly it has grown. Within the first 6 months, I had already applied for and gotten a grant for a youth program, a youth adaptive diving program in Utah, and have felt quite a bit of support from some other, multiple smaller donors that have helped to provide funds for some of the training. And anyway, it's just I would like to say that it's almost growing faster than I can keep up with, but
Great.
not quite there yet. I can still keep up with where I'm at, but it's
That's
fun.
great.
It's awesome.
So, what a fantastic story, and what a pure just motivation on how you came about this. And so, as I hear, and correct me if I'm wrong, you are at a place. In fact, I'll share with you. I just heard a story yesterday about an individual, and he was teaching a lesson. It was in Sunday school. So
Hmm.
he put a picture on the board of a beautiful mountain range, like this single mountain range, and it was a picture of a mountain in Iceland. And he shared a story about the photographer who took that picture, that was a very successful business person and had summited a mountain, if you may, in his own accord from a professional standpoint. And he said he went to Iceland or Greenland, one of those two, and said he took a picture of this and said it was very symbolic of the second mountain that he wanted to summit. So it's the second half of his life in the second mountain, which was very charitable focused in what he wanted to do. And as you were telling your story about how you, in essence, have summited that first mountain in
Right.
raising your 8 children, what a big mountain that must have been to summit. And what a beautiful, beautiful experience, I imagine, in doing so. But you are at a place now where you are longing for and looking for additional purpose, additional ways to be able to be of impact and of service to others. And it was through this dive master in Florida that this inspiration for this nonprofit came about. And that was just a
Absolutely.
couple of years ago, it sounds
Right.
like. And so I would love to hear how it has been as you started this journey, because there was the the first person that you were able to get certified. Maybe let's start there.
So the first person I have was that I certified is a family friend. I already knew him. He has Down syndrome. Actually, he's around 40. His name's Brian, and his several members of his family scuba dive. His family of really close friends scuba dive, and it we brought the idea to him, and all of a sudden he couldn't get it out of his head.
Mhm.
So I started working with him, and it's this process of moving at a pace that the diver can learn at. And we spent, over the course of about 8 weeks, we spent about an hour a week in the swimming pool teaching him a couple of skills that he needed to have for us to be able to get him into deeper waters. So I will never forget the first time I had him in the pool. He wears a full face mask rather than a regular, breathing on a regular regulator because of it's hard for him to hold a regulator in his mouth. So we just fixed that by changing the equipment. And he wears his full face mask. So we put the full face mask on him, and we did a little dive in the swimming pool, swim around, came out. He popped his head out of the water, ripped this mask off of his face, and just was so happy. He just had I just gave me this giant hug because it kind of didn't even have the words to describe how amazing it was. And he said to me, "I'm a scuba diver," and it was just awesome. And it's been like that every experience that I've had with him, and I definitely have. He has filled a hole in my heart I didn't know I had.
Wow.
And my love for him is incredible. After about 8 weeks in the pool with him and teaching him to equalize his ears, and like I said, a couple of other skills that he needed to be able to have, and just to see the progression of him learning to do these things, on his own and being confident in his ability to do them on his own. We then took him up to the crater in Midway because that's one of our local places that we can do some deeper diving to prepare someone to go into the ocean. So we did that and kind of had the same experience. All of a sudden, he was a scuba diver again, and he had had this even better experience. And then finally, in January, actually of this year, we took him and some really close friends that to Roatan and dove off the boat with him, and he was then finally able to dive with people he loved. So we just create our team around him and keep him safe, and then he's just diving alongside everybody else he loved, and it was
Wow.
awesome.
Wow.
So fun to
Well,
see that come full circle.
I've met Brian
Yeah.
before, and he is just a dear soul, an incredible human being for sure. And
Hmm.
I just think, Brian isn't like overly verbal, and so he's
No.
not, you're not holding at length conversations with Brian, and so. And Brian is nearly 40 years old, right? As
Yeah.
you as
Right.
you
Right.
as you had shared. And so, how was this for mom and dad for Brian? First off, and so you went to them, I guess, and were they
Hmm.
like, absolutely, let's do it, or what was their thoughts on this?
Well, I think that there was already a lot of trust
They knew
with
you,
his parents
yeah.
because they knew me. And
Hmm.
so I'm not, I'm sure that they had their reservations and maybe didn't really realize how successful we would be with Brian. But they, came to every single time we were in the pool, lots of pictures, lots of videos, just so excited. I mean, I'm sure that they saw him accomplish things that they weren't aware that he could accomplish on his
No doubt.
and do.
Had they dove before? Were they certified?
I believe his mom has dove before. Hasn't been for a while because of some health reasons, but I believe she has been a diver too. So she has perspective, but I do think he has family members that also dive, siblings.
Got it.
And so we've talked a little bit about getting him on another trip with some of his siblings, and that
Yeah.
would be fun.
So you went to Brian and proposed this idea. He was excited about it, and so you
Hmm.
guys went for it. And then fast forward
Absolutely.
to this trip in January, where it's an international trip. You got to actually dive in a very real scenic, I mean, target destination for divers to be able
Absolutely.
to go
Hmm.
to. And Brian was able to do that with some people that he loves. What a
Right.
beautiful story.
We taught him hand signals for different fish, and he was looking for fish and shark and turtles and everything the whole time. It was fun.
Wow.
It was awesome.
So, what have been maybe, or share an example of a scenario where it didn't work out, where the individual maybe wasn't able to get certified, or it wasn't as positive of an experience, and how did you manage through that?
So I'm working with a young man right now who is, I'm not sure where it's going to end up. We were The basis of his disability is fetal alcohol syndrome.
Mm.
And so some of the behavioral aspects of it are a little bit hard to overcome. And I have been successful so far in keeping him safe in the pool. And it might be that that's what where it ends up for him is just time in the pool. But even just that is a beautiful experience for some people. Also, the case in another young man I'm working with autism. Um, he, I get him under the water. Both of these young men, I get them under the water, and a lot of the distractions of that normally fill their head kind of disappear. And they focus and interact differently underwater than they do on the surface.
Interesting.
And so all they can hear is themselves breathing, they can hear the bubbles. And so I have yet to have an experience that I would call unsuccessful because I think we can find success at any point in the process. Even
Robin,
if
that's
all
a
it
great
is getting someone
perspective.
to try something that's hard or scary or a little bit out of their comfort zone, I think it's worth it.
That's a
So
beautiful perspective, and I think exactly the right mindset that is exactly what we would hope to have our caregivers be able to hear. In that, even if your son or daughter is not going on an international dive trip, the fact that they are trying something that gets them out of their comfort zone and doing something they have never done before is a beautiful win, without question.
absolutely, absolutely.
What are some of the other disabilities that you've been able to coach?
So I have worked with people, a lot of people with physical disabilities. There's a lot of like physiologic benefits and pain control and
Wow.
benefits there for people with um, kind of chronic pain that stems from a spinal cord injury. I've worked with a lot of individuals that are paraplegic or even quadriplegic that from an injury. And when we get them in the water, not only are they feel that weightlessness and they kind of have a relief of pain because of the weightlessness. There's a psychological benefit because underwater we're all just divers. They're no longer confined in a wheelchair, and we're all just swimming alongside each other. And it's a pretty so there's kind of these beautiful
Hmm.
physiologic and psychological benefits from diving. I just recently went on a trip to Grenada with and met some people there. This trip was structured a little bit differently. I didn't know the people until I got there and just arrived and was placed on a team and dove with some people. So I dove with a woman that had a spinal cord injury from a surgery, another woman that had an accident where she fell through a roof and was complete paraplegic, and then an absolutely amazing woman with ALS, that like a slow progressing ALS and was a wheelchair user. And then another man that, again, a paraplegic from an accident. So that was just this specific trip.
Wow.
Um, but we also have divers with Parkinson's, with cerebral palsy, with, congenital missing limbs.
Hmm.
There really is, because of the process and the amount of time that we spend and the attitude of adapting the environment. We're never trying to adapt the diver. We're never trying to change the diver. We're only trying to adapt the environment around them so that it works for the diver. And I think because of that attitude, we can just solve the problems
Yeah.
creatively.
Share with us a little bit about that process and how, where do you go from the very beginning, step one, and what does that process look like?
So if you were to come to me with a child or as an individual that wanted to participate in the program, the first thing we would require is a doctor sign off. That's really important to us to make sure that a physician is aware that you're participating in the program and that they're comfortable with it. So once we have that, we sit down with the diver and a parent if that's appropriate, if that's necessary, and whoever else is important to the team. And as a team, including the diver, we run through a series of questions that kind of give me a starting point as to where to start. Just because of my experience, answering all of this series of questions allows me to have a good idea where to start. And then once we answer those questions, we get in the pool and we start working. There is an We kind of follow the outline, the general outline of a regular scuba certification in terms of trying to teach the skills that someone would learn if they were doing a PADI certification or SSI or just a standard agency certification. But
Hmm.
as soon as we hit a point that there's a skill that the diver can't accomplish independently, we don't skip the skill. We figure out how to do it or how to mitigate it and make sure that we're covering whatever safety factor that skill is meant to cover. So we continue to progress through all of the training, but we do it in a way that the team is accomplishing the tasks instead of the diver individually is accomplishing the tasks. Once we get to a point where we feel like we've covered all of those skills in the pool, and then we go try it in deeper water, and again in a team. So the disability of the diver and kind of partly that initial interview determine the certification level of the team that the diver will dive with. If
What would
they're
be a typical team that you use?
so the team will is a minimum of 3 people, and one of those people is the diver. So the diver is always part of the team. And so the minimum would be the diver plus 2 buddies. Occasionally, frequently, with a more like significant disability, we have a third buddy team member on the team to help keep everyone safe. So it's a party. There's a lot of us, and we're doing a lot of communicating and a lot of back and forth. We always one of the really beautiful parts of the process, we call it briefing and debriefing. We sit as a team before the dive, before we get into the water ever, whether it's the pool, the crater, the ocean. We sit as a team and make sure that everyone is on the same page and everybody knows all the answers. And then at the end of the dive, we do the same thing and we talk about what went good, what went wrong, what do we need to improve. So it's this really safe learning environment, not just for the diver, but also for the buddies that are diving with the diver. And it just becomes this really beautiful growth process for everyone involved.
Yeah. So you would, there's no doubt. I mean, I can only imagine what this experience must be like for the diver themselves.
Mhm.
I envision Brian saying, I'm a diver now. I was a scuba diver." Like, what a beautiful, beautiful moment for everybody involved. But something that maybe I didn't have a perspective on until I actually started visiting with you today is the perspective of the team, the other teammates. And so, in
Mhm.
addition to the diver, and you had said something earlier today that really resonated. You said, I have had a hole in my heart filled that I didn't even know I had. Can you elaborate more on what that means to you and what this has meant to you and other members of the team that would be part of the divers team?
I think something I've heard similar comments to that come out from a lot of the people that I've worked with that have done the training to become a team member. The training to become a buddy starts with a process where we can't perfectly simulate any disability, but we try to put our buddies through certain scenarios that help them we call it empathy training, but we try to teach empathy, or we do teach empathy. We also teach vocabulary. We teach, you know, trying to help people become more comfortable with people that have disabilities. I think even though we don't really want to admit it, we have to admit that learning to interact with people that have disabilities is a process.
That's right.
And but but through that process, I know that I am a better person now. I've filled filled the hole in my heart, that, like I said, that I didn't know I had. I've grown. I love the people that I work with and the people that I dive with, both the buddies and the divers. And I've just gained this community of people that is so important to me, and so important to this half of my life. And I know that that people that I talk to that go through the process feel the same way.
Yeah, no, most definitely. Robin, you'd shared the story about Brian. Is there another story that you would like to share of an experience you've had with a diver and his or her team?
Um, yeah. So let me tell you about, I'm trying to think which one to tell you about. Let me tell you about Amber. So Amber is a young lady. She is about 23. She was a professional barefoot water skier. And about, let's see, maybe 10, no, let's see, she's a little older now. She's about 29. So it was when she was about 22, she had this accident. She had an accident where she she crashed doing a barefoot jump. So I guess it's not called barefoot water skiing. She's a barefoot skier,
Wow.
and so she crashed during a jump, drowned, because she was paralyzed. So she drowned. She was revived, and is a quadriplegic. So she's uses a wheelchair, and she was probably one of the first people that I dove with a significant physical disability. And she has taught me so much about just the interaction and the conversations and the way to, I don't even want to call it the way to talk to people with a disability, but learning to talk to somebody with a disability and recognizing that they're the same as me. They're just a
Yes.
person, and that they they maybe live their life a little bit differently than I do, but their needs and their loves and their goals and their dreams are the same as mine. So I've had the opportunity to dive with her, and she and I have built a relationship. And she has goals that have to go to law school. She's taken the LSAT. She's applied to law school. She's hoping actually to come out to BYU. She's not a member of our church, but she is a super excited about the environment out here. And so I've had the opportunity to help her in her own personal life to like kind of navigate some of that stuff. And
Yeah.
so so I just love her. I love the fact that this process has allowed me to learn someone, to know someone, to build a relationship of trust with someone, and then to be able to extend that into other opportunities to serve and interact with her and build that relationship with her. And so, she's not someone that I trained. I just met her.
Yep.
But I love how all of this process together and being on her team and being, part of her life has helped me and has given me something.
Wonderful. I have to tell you, this has been a very impactful podcast, and in ways that I probably didn't necessarily expect. And so I love what you're doing for these individuals. You are serving them, you are creating a path and an opportunity for them to experience life in a way that honestly, I don't think they ever would have imagined they would have got to experience this. You're opening up a new avenue for caregivers and those individuals with whom they serve to just have an amazing life. But the one thing that has stood out to me so much so through this conversation is a universal principle that's not just applicable to diving, and that is go back a number of years and you feeling a desire to do more.
Yep.
You had a desire in your heart to be able to be of service and to, as you said, fill a hole in your heart that you didn't even know you necessarily had. And so you served that feeling. You followed that prompting, those feelings that you felt inside. And that has led you down a path to where you have been a tremendous value and a tremendous service to many, many people. And the way that I like to articulate that is I believe that you are singing the song that you are meant to sing. And I believe that every single one of us in this life, whether we are individual that's living with a disability, whether we're a child, whether we're a senior citizen, whether we're right in the middle of our career, whatever it may be, we have a song that we're meant to sing. And if we listen in our quiet moments, just as you have done, we will know what we're supposed to do. And I just commend you for honoring those feelings and look at the beautiful life that you've created for so many people as a result.
Love it. I love that.
Yeah, perfect. Well, Robin,
Agreed.
it's been a pleasure to have you on the show today. You've been a tremendous guest. Thank you for the work that you're doing. I am very motivated to find a way to be able to get Nash and Cooper scuba certified. I have never
I'd love to
been,
work with them.
and I think they could. They are fish. They love swimming, and they are very, very comfortable in water. So I know they could do that. And I have never been scuba certified myself. Andrea, my wife, has. And so I think this is a good challenge for the Murrays to be able to take on here in the near future.
Absolutely. I would absolutely love to get you guys in the water and try it. I do, always happy to just set up an opportunity to try it.
Yeah.
I would say 80% of the people that try it get excited about it and realize, oh, I can do this. And
Yeah.
like I said, my biggest hurdle is getting people to try it. So yeah, I'd
My
love
guess
to.
is my boys would be all over it. So
I bet they would.
we're going to have
I
to do
bet they
that.
would too. Okay.
Very good. Robin, thank you so much for being a guest on the show, and looking forward to continued dialogue in the future.
Sounds great. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Conquering Your Clownfish. If you liked what we discussed on the podcast today and want to continue the conversation, please visit us at conqueringyourclownfish.com. And please don't forget to subscribe.